Macklin Celebrini has been a revelation for the Sharks, but what impact does he actually have on the numbers? We dig into it today.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Western Conference Tuesdays on the Locked On NHL channel. Want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be discussing one Macklin Celebrini. We're going to look at kind of the impact that he's had on the Sharks since the Sharks have played 24 games, 12 with Celebrini, 12 without. Look at the difference between the Sharks with and without Celebrini and project what to expect from Celebrini as we continue the rest of the season. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Macklin Celebrini. He's been pretty good, right? For the Sharks. I think we can all agree. He's been pretty good. So Celebrini so far this season, just as a quick reminder, he's played 12 games, 6 goals, 4 assists for 10 points, 40 shots on goal, and playing 1949 time on ice. So just as a bit of a reminder, but what type of impact has he had on the Sharks, right? Because this is a team game, right? We want to know how Celebrini, who's arguably your foundation for everything else that goes, how has he actually impacted the Sharks and how has he affected the Sharks? And what type of team are the Sharks with him? And what type of team have we seen the Sharks be without him? So what I did is I dug into the numbers. I looked at the 12 games where Macklin Celebrini has been in the Sharks lineup, pulled the numbers from those, did the tabulations, all that fun stuff. And I looked at the 12 games where Macklin Celebrini was out of the lineup and what type of production did the Sharks get. So we're going to look at everything from the global stats, like the records, all that fun stuff. We're going to dig into the actual offense and see where Celebrini has a big impact on the Sharks and, kind of some of the other areas from Celebrini. So let's start with some of the big kind of global numbers with San Jose. And the 12 games that the Sharks have played with Celebrini, they're 4-4-4. They have 12 points in those games. The record without Celebrini, 3-8-1 with 7 points. So while they've only won one more game in this time, 4 wins to 4-3, they've been at least accruing a point per game, right? Those 12 points as the Sharks now have 19 and 24 games of the season. As a reminder, the Sharks they ended up with 47 points last season. Something else to keep in mind is in this Celebrini games, the Sharks have 3 shootout losses in those times and an overtime loss. In the games without Celebrini, they have 1 overtime loss. So especially the shootouts, right, where the Sharks have been pitiful in the shootouts, you're almost like a coin flip away from winning some of those games and then potentially being, 6-4-2, for example. Like if with, 14 points, if I'm trying to do math off the top of my head really quick. Like this team has been much more competitive in these games where Celebrini, and you see it in the records and the way that this team has battled and the way that they've won games with Celebrini in the lineup here. Looking more kind of at some of the other kind of big stats with Celebrini is actual scoring with Macklin Celebrini. The goals for per game, or the goals for they've scored. So sorry, excuse me. In the 12 games that they've scored in all situations, they've scored 35 goals, which is a goals for per game at 2.92, which doesn't sound like, just to put, if the Sharks kept that same rate all season long, that would put them at 17th or 18th, excuse me, in the NHL, just between the Kings and the Oilers. So the Kings have scored 2.95 goals per game this year, and the Oilers at 2.91. Just as a reminder, the Sharks this year at 2.63 24th. So that'd be a jump up of 8 spots if they continued the same production with Celebrini in the lineup. Even the goals allowed, 40, 3.33. So that's still like one of near the top, kind of top 10 and most goals allowed. And that's not, not going to change drastically. So the Sharks right now in this season, goals allowed per game play, they're 7th at 3.38. So a little bit right there. They'd be 7th still right there. But goal differential -5, I think, is a big number there. Because like this team, again, like they do give up, like we saw last year, right? The goal differential was like -140, whatever. Like it was one of the worst. -5, like that's not the worst goal differential in the world, especially for a team like the Sharks, who have been really, 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 really poor in giving up goals. So, for example, goal differential -5, that would put them 16th, tied with the Edmonton Oilers. Currently, right now, they're -22, so you can do the math to figure out where they're at. That's 30th in the league. I'm trying to do math. Nope. Anyway, like, not too bad. So you see Celebrini, at least offensively, having an impact. So without Celebrini, they scored 28 goals for 2.33 goals for per game. That would tie them with the Chicago Blackhawks for second to last in the goals for per game. Like, this is, so they go from middle of the pack to second to last. Only the Bruins are at 2.22, who got shut out tonight, and the Blackhawks at 2.33. Just a reminder, the Sharks 2.63. So that's a huge drop off right there. Goals allowed 45, 3.75. And again, that differential of -17. So you can see, like, at least at some of the scoring numbers here, like the total numbers, Celebrini's had a huge impact on goals and scoring goals. And we'll dig into that a little bit more here and kind of what Celebrini has actually meant when it comes, especially at 5-on-5 play, to scoring some of these goals. But Celebrini's impact in the win-loss column, again, like 12 points to 7, that's a 5-point difference in the same 12 games. Earning some of those shootouts or earning some of those overtimes, very easily a world where the Sharks have won, if they win 1 or 2 of those shootouts or another overtime game with Celebrini in the lineup, like we're talking about a team that's looking, there's over a point per game basically, and as within the standings, and is an offense that's getting close to that nice 3 goals a game with Celebrini in the offense. Like, that's a dramatic shift from last year, where this team, again, one of the worst offenses we have seen, massive goal differential. And it's just, again, much more. There's a lot of new pieces, etc. This isn't all Celebrini, but you can see what Macklin Celebrini has done for the Sharks offense, at least when it comes to scoring, and how big of an impact it is. So we'll continue to dig into the offense, look at the Corsi, the shot attempts, look at the actual shots on goal, all that fun stuff. Look at the power play, see at what Celebrini's impact has been, if any, in some of those departments. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. If you're a renter, I'd start taking advantage of Built if I were you. Here's the thing. We earn points on groceries, travel, and practically everything else we buy. But why should we also be earning points on rent? One of our biggest monthly expenses. Built changed the game by letting renters earn high value points on rent and around their neighborhood. There's no cost to join Built. As a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on everything, everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties all around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards future rent payments and unique experiences only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not start earning points on rent? If you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedon, that's joinbilt.com/lockedonnhl. Make sure to use our URL so you know that we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl to start earning points on your rent payments today. And if you want to go down to the tank to go catch the Sharks, maybe go see Steph Curry and the Warriors, get Shenanigans game, all that good stuff, you need to check out Game Time. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Of course, they have the lowest price guarantee. So if you do find tickets that for cheaper, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. And of course, you can always see your seat before you go with their panoramic views. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right. Before we continue, do want to, of course, thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, go check out one of the other great shows around here in the Locked On Network. You have, of course, Locked On Fantasy Hockey. So if your fantasy hockey team needs some help, they got you covered there. Or check out one of the other great shows here in the Bay Area. Locked On Niners, Locked On Warriors, Locked On A's, Locked On Giants. Plenty of great stuff here. The Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. All right. So we've seen like kind of the big scope stuff. Like Celebrini has had a massive effect on the Sharks and their scoring actual goals. And last time I checked, you need to outscore your opponents in most sporting events, right, to win the game. So let's dig into some of the nitty gritty with Celebrini and what his kind of presence has provided the Sharks. So shots and shot attempts. This one's interesting because not what I expected. So shots per game, actual shots on goal, all situations, 27.58 shots per game. Again, this team doesn't generate a ton of offense. So not like a huge difference there for San Jose. Like this is still, bottom of the pack type of team when it comes to that area. So shots allowed per game, 31.42. Again, Sharks getting outshot. Shot attempts, though, the Corsi 4, 40.75. So the Sharks are basically averaging 41 shot attempts at 5-on-5 with Celebrini. They're giving up 56 shot attempts at 5-on-5 with Celebrini for a Corsi 4 percentage of 42.26. So 28 shots per 27.5 shots per game, giving up 31.5. But the Corsi 4, you're giving up a fair amount of shot attempts, especially when you compare without Celebrini. The shots per game played are actually down a little bit at 27.1, 31.08 shots allowed. So pretty much even, but Corsi 4, 44.58. And then the Corsi allowed, so the shot attempts allowed 51.16 for a Corsi for percentage of 46.56. So the Sharks are doing a better job of getting more shot attempts with Macklin Celebrini out of the lineup, but they're not getting as many shots on goal with Macklin Celebrini in the lineup. So just interesting there. And I wonder, as this will be, we'll talk more as Celebrini continues his progression, if that number changes and you see that number, the shot attempts continue to go up with Celebrini in the lineup. But just really interesting to me that they're getting more shot attempts without Celebrini, but actual shots on goal. So the quality versus quantity debate that we always have. The actual goals at 5-on-5. So the Sharks have a expected goals for with Celebrini in the lineup of 18.86. So basically, the math gods say the Sharks should score 18.86 in the 12 games at 5-on-5. Sharks have actually scored 23 goals. So they're outproducing their expected goals for with Macklin Celebrini in the lineup, which is good. Right? That's what good players do. They make goals happen that maybe shouldn't happen. Expected goals allowed 28.03. They've only given up 26. So they're actually defensively, they're giving up less goals than they should be expected. And that's not all Celebrini. That is, Mackenzie Blackwood doing crazy Mackenzie Blackwood things, right? But your offense, having a better offense takes pressure off your defense, right? That's the whole defense is for nerds. If you control pace of play and you're scoring goals, it makes your defensive life typically easier. Without Celebrini, the Sharks actually expected goals for is 28.49. So they're producing more expected goals for, but they've only scored 15, which is kind of crazy that the team is generating more projected offense, but they're just not able to capitalize. And that's where just having a special player, I think, like Celebrini comes into play. And you saw it, you've seen it with a lot of his goals, right? The first goal last night or the other night against the Kings off the rush, where he just puts it in a place that not many other people can put there, that goal. That's just a special player making a special play. Expected goals allowed, 27.38. With the goals allowed of 29. So the Sharks are actually giving up more goals than expected with Celebrini out of the lineup. On the power play, so 12 games with Celebrini, the Sharks have had 42 power play opportunities. They've scored 6 goals for a rate of 16.67. Without Celebrini, 37 opportunities. They've scored 7 goals, 18.9. And this is a number I think as the season goes on, that number I think will continue to change as the Sharks are still trying to iron out their power play. But it's just really interesting that some of the kind of analytics and numbers suggest like the Sharks have done good stuff without Celebrini, but at some point, right, you still have to put the puck in the net, and that's where Celebrini comes in and makes a huge difference of like him just being a special talent. And how many of his goals have we seen, right, where he's just a special talent making things happen that just normal players don't? You think of like, again, you think of the first goal he scored on Monday night. You think about the goal against Marc-Andre Fleury, where again, like the same thing. He's not even looking at Fleury, and it's just like top shelf Marc-Andre Fleury, who's a like surefire Hall of Famer, one of the best goalies of his generation. He had no chance on that, man. Like special things that Celebrini is able to do. So, and I think that's what we'll talk about more here coming forward, where some of these numbers, these analytical numbers of like shot attempts and stuff like that, I think that's where it's going to catch up to what Celebrini is actually doing for the Sharks, because yes, Sharks are outscoring what they expected, but good players do that. The great players do that as they make things happen. And I think we're going to see the numbers start to kind of lean towards what we're seeing from Celebrini and what he kind of brings to it. So we're going to project, kind of talk about the rest of the season, what to kind of continue to expect from Celebrini, and why, again, we might just be seeing like scratching the surface stuff from him as he continues his progression. The Sharks continue to kind of figure out life around Macklin Celebrini. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So we get the hunch in the middle of a game, you check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. Again, thank you guys for making a Locked On Sharks your first listen. Just as a reminder, we have Thanksgiving on Thursday. So you'll get a recap episode against the Sens Wednesday night. That'll be your Thursday episode. So if you need a break from everybody, or if you just want to hang out Thursday night, hopefully the Sharks beat the Sens or Wednesday night. That episode will be out right after the Sens game as per usual. No episode Thursday into Friday. Again, Thanksgiving. I'm going to be watching I'm going to be full of turkey and watching the Dolphins game. But then Friday, we will have an episode right after the Kraken game because the Sharks play at 12:30. So that'll be your Friday episode for you. So just as a little reminder, international listeners, et cetera, et cetera. But we still got you covered with all these Sharks games this week. So, all right. Projecting the rest of the season, right? And we've seen from Celebrini just already a lot of special moments, and even going into the season, right? We were talking about, can we see flashes of Celebrini that show how special he can be? And like check so far as we're 12 games into the Celebrini career. But we're still going to see, like, as great as Celebrini has been, we're still going to see moments where he's just continues to do stuff, and we're going to have a game here at some point. I don't know when, but like, we're going to have a game where we're like, oh, that dude's just different, right? And where he's like hat trick Celebrini with 2 assists type of performance, where he just every time he's on the ice, he's just doing something special. Like, don't be surprised just because he's that dude. Like, he is just that dude right now. And we're also going to have Celebrini moments where he looks like an 18-year-old kid playing in the NHL. So don't be surprised. Like that. There's still going to be a lot of peaks and valleys with Macklin Celebrini right now. The hope is the valleys aren't too low and you have more peaks. I guess you have more ups, right? With him. And I think, though, like I was kind of saying before, though, is look for these numbers to continue to push upwards, especially when it comes to the offensive production. Right now you might have to, especially with Celebrini, who I think is going to be a good defensive player, but like every 18-year-old kid, right? Every young player, he's going to have miscues in the defensive zones. So don't be surprised if maybe the Sharks kind of lean into it and just be like, you know what, let's just try to outscore our problems right now, right? The defense will come. Like, the defense will come for Celebrini. And as the Sharks defensive core also gets better, hopefully, with some of the young talent that they drafted, and those guys start to kind of infiltrate the lineup, and, you kind of weed out who you want to stay and who you want to go. But don't be surprised if the Sharks just kind of continue this like push offensively to just be a more offensive team, right? And Pavel Buchnevich of the Blues on Saturday, right before Jim Montgomery, before they kind of went through their coaching change, but he talked about like how you can't win games by scoring 1 or 2 goals. Like, that time of NHL is over. Like, you can't, right? And especially with how teams come back. And we've seen it ourselves, right? Where the Sharks have come back from 3 goals with 5 minutes left in the third period against Utah to win that game. And we've seen them give up plenty of 3-goal leads as well over the past couple seasons. And look for them to continue to just try to, because that's the way the NHL is going to go, is this team is going to have to be an offensive team. Yes, you need to play defense, and but you can't rely on winning every game 2-1. And you need to be able to generate offense. And I think that's the next step for this Sharks team is, they're learning how to win. You're learning how to kind of generate offense, and there's still pieces to be coming in for this team, but is building that sustainable offense where you're, kind of that Corsi 4 is getting closer and closer and closer to 50%. And you're generating more shot attempts, and you're keeping the other team from generating shot attempts. And you are the one who, is producing more expected goals and more real goals. So, and I think, again, with Macklin Celebrini in the lineup and just starting to kind of figure things out, I don't see this team getting worse, right? That's a good thing. And I know there's going to be people, and there's probably going to be somebody in the comments are like, well, the Sharks should still try to tank and get a top 3 pick. Okay. Yes, the Sharks should try to get a top 3 pick, but you have the foundation right here in your hands in Macklin Celebrini. Now it's building around him as best you can, and trying to figure out what type of player he is and what type of players he needs around him to be his best. And that's where, yes, believe me, I want a really great pick. I also don't want to jeopardize Macklin Celebrini's future and making sure that, putting him in a detriment for future success. And the Sharks are going to have a top 5 pick. Like, even if the Sharks continue to play well, they're still a young team that's going to make mistakes and make errors. And you think, you're going to lose pieces at the trade deadline and have more young players coming into the lineup. Like, this team's still going to lose a bunch of games, and that's fine. But the days of like tanking until we get to like past the trade deadline, right now, the days of like focusing on the tank, those are gone. With Macklin Celebrini, you're full steam ahead trying to find the best possible pieces around him. And if you go back, this thing is going to stick with me forever. I talked to Joe from the Sabres, right? He said it's never too early. And that was a guy who's watched the Sabres try to do this thing a bajillion times and failed, right? Learn from the lessons of those around you and their failings. And if you have a guy, and the Sharks have a guy, Macklin Celebrini, it's never too early to start thinking ahead about when does this next good Sharks team look like? And you know what? If you have to start going for it, you got to start going for it. So, yeah. Again, still a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of fun this season. There's still going to be plenty of down moments, still going to be plenty of losses, but we have a guy. We have a guy. And that's the most important thing that you can get out of the season is we have a guy in Celebrini, and we hope we're going to get a guy in Will Smith here as he continues his progress and his development. You feel like you got a pretty solid guy in Eklund. Like you feel like you have a lot of pieces already. So yes, the days of tanking, the tank commander is, is put up on the rack right now. We don't need the helmet. We don't need the tank commander. We need to focus around putting the best pieces around Celebrini to be the special player that he is expected to be. So that's going to be it for me today. Just a reminder again, we'll be back tomorrow for the Sens game. No episode on Thursday into Friday, and then we got you covered for after the Kraken game on Friday afternoon. So make sure you're following wherever you get podcasts, and of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at LockOn Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.